To start, we are going to make a magic ring. To make a magic ring, you are going to take your yarn on the underside of your pointer and your middle finger, wrap it around, come back to the underside, and then come over so that this way you make an X. You will then put your hook under this first piece that's wrapped around your finger, grab the piece that is farther away, bring it to the front, grab the working end of your yarn, and create a loop. That will create your chain 1 on your magic ring. I then like to take the tail and untwist it from the loop so that this way nothing gets tangled up when you pull this tight. For round 1 of our daisy coasters, we are going to create 7 single crochet in our magic ring. Before I pull this all the way tight, I am going to come over here and I'm going to find my first single crochet for round 2, and I'm going to insert my hook. When you pull your magic ring tight, sometimes that first stitch can get tight, and that makes it easier so that you can work that first stitch. So I'm going to pull this just a little bit to tighten that up, and then I'm going to move on to the round 2 instructions. So in round 2, you are going to be placing 2 single crochet in every stitch around. After I've made my first 2 single crochet, I'm going to pull the tail of my magic ring to make it nice and tight. I'm going to grab a stitch marker, and in that first stitch of round 2, I'm going to place my stitch marker so that I know where I started, because we are working in continuous rounds. I'm going to take the tail of my magic ring and I'm going to lay it here on top of my stitches from round 1, and I'm going to work over it to weave in the end. You will then continue with the instructions of round 2, which is to place 2 single crochet in each single crochet from round 1 for a total of 14 single crochet. Coming to the end of round 2, I am placing my last single crochet because I have gotten to the stitch marker, so I know that I'm at the end of round 2. Using the stitch marker is going to make it easy for this repeat, so that this way you don't have to count every single time you go around. So I now have my 14 single crochet of round 2. I still have my tail, so we are going to continue working over this in round 3. Round 3, the repeat is to single crochet 1. I'm going to remove this stitch marker. I'm going to bring it up into this first stitch, and then I'm going to single crochet 2 in the next stitch. That repeats all the way around, placing 1 single crochet followed by 2 single crochet until you get back to your stitch marker. For round 3, you will have a total of 21 stitches. Coming to the end of my round 3, nice and easy because I have my stitch marker in the first stitch. I'm going to place my last 2 single crochet for round 3, again to create a total of 21 stitches. And then we are going to move on to round 4. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker, place my first single crochet for round 4, pick my stitch marker back up and put it in that first stitch of round 4. I'm then going to continue with the repeat of round 4, which is to single crochet 2. So I've created my first single crochet. I'm now going to place my second single crochet, and then I'm going to place 2 single crochet in the next stitch for an increase. You will then repeat that all the way around, single crocheting 1 in each of the next 2 stitches, and then placing 2 single crochet in the next stitch for an increase until you reach your stitch marker, which at that point you will have a total of 28 stitches. Coming to the end of my round 4, because I see my stitch marker, I'm going to place my last 2 stitches. And then at this point, if you would like, this is where you can check your gauge. So the gauge for this pattern is that the first 4 rounds will measure 2 inches across in diameter. So I'm going to take my tape, I'm going to put the 1 in the center, and I am going to come here and I'm going to check. So I am just slightly off from my gauge. I'm about 2 1/4 across, which is fine. The gauge for this pattern is important mostly because we want to make sure that our daisy coasters lay nice and flat. So as you can see here, My daisy coaster is laying nice and flat. If my gauge was too tight, they might be puckering up, and if my gauge was too loose, they would probably be crinkling a bit because there'd be too much extra material. So long as your first 4 rounds are laying nice and flat and you don't see any pinching or puckering, then your gauge should be fine. Moving on to round 5, I'm going to remove my stitch marker, place my first stitch for round 5, put my stitch marker back in to that stitch, and then I will follow the round 5 instructions. For round 5, the repeat will be to place 3 single crochet and then a 2 single crochet increase. So I have my first single crochet here. I'm going to place 2 more single crochet and then place 2 single crochet in the next stitch for an increase. I will then repeat that all the way around until I reach my stitch marker. Coming to the end of round 5, I'm placing my last 2 single crochet in my final stitch, and now we are going to move on to round 6. Round 6, we are going to switch colors. So to switch colors, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the color A that I started with. I'm then going to grab my color B, and what I like to do when I change colors is I come back out of this last stitch that I created and I bring in the new color there. So I'm going to take this last stitch partially out, insert my hook back in. I'll put the new color over my hook and I'm going to bring that through. Then I'll use my color A to kind of tighten this around my hook. And then I'm going to be laying both of these tails flat to work over them in round 6. Going to remove my stitch marker and I'm going to place my first single crochet for round 6. Now, because this is a different color, you may or may not want to place your stitch marker here because it's going to be really easy to see when you come back to your first stitch in your round. I'm just going to slide my stitch marker over for the time being, and I'm going to continue with the round 6 instructions. Again, I'm going to be keeping these tails on top of my stitches so I can work right over them. For round 6, we are going to single crochet 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then place 2 single crochet in the next stitch for an increase. You are going to repeat that all the way around until you reach the first stitch of round 6. Coming here to the last stitch of round 5, where I'm going to place my final 2 single crochet for an increase in round 6. So here are the first 6 rounds of our daisy coaster. So the first 6 rounds are just a flat circle. We are working in continuous rounds to not have a seam here. If you want, you can work a slip stitch to join, do a chain 1, and so that this way you don't have this jump here. I don't particularly mind it. I think that once you have it all put together, you don't really see it. Like it's not really there. So again, that just makes it easier and a little bit neater, but you are welcome if you would like to do a slip stitch to join, chain 1, and then continue with your round instructions. Moving on to the round 7 instructions, I am going to place my first single crochet, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to grab my stitch marker and place it there. Since round 7 is worked in the same color we are working with currently, I don't want to lose track of my first stitch. So after we make our first single crochet, the next stitch we have to make is a spike stitch. If you're not familiar with a spike stitch, essentially all it is a single crochet worked in a row below. For this pattern, we are going to be working our spike stitches 2 rows, in this case rounds, 2 rounds below. So I have this row that we're working in. I'm going to come down to this second one and I'm going to place my stitch right there under that, yarn over, pull up a loop, just as you would for a single crochet. Sometimes these can twist, so I like to take my hook out and bring it in the other way, and then yarn over and complete your stitch. That makes this nice, beautiful spike. You then skip the stitch behind and you're going to single crochet in the next stitch. Now we will skip 1, and in the next stitch, we are going to create a 5 double crochet shell. You will then skip the next single crochet and repeat what we just did from our stitch marker. So we skip this single crochet, that's the end of the repeat, and then going back to the beginning of the repeat, we are going to place a single crochet, spike stitch 2 rows below, Again, if yours twists, you can pop your hook out and pop it back in the other direction and complete your stitch. Skip the single crochet behind, single crochet in the next stitch, skip the next stitch, and then place a 5 double crochet shell. You will then skip the next single crochet and continue with the repeat. It is very important after you create your 5 double crochet shell that you only skip 1 stitch. Sometimes these can kind of push into your next stitch and you might end up skipping 2, which is going to mess up the repeat on your daisy. So be sure to check that you are only skipping the next single crochet stitch. You will then continue that around until you have 7 petals. Coming to my last 2 stitches, I am placing my final 5 double crochet shell. So now I'm going to remove my stitch marker and we will move on to round 8. So for round 8, we start by slip stitching to the spike stitch. We then skip the next single crochet, and then we are going to place 2 half double crochet in each of the 5 double crochet of the previous round. So that's a total of 10 half double crochet by placing 2 in each double crochet. You then skip the next single crochet and continue the repeat around by placing a slip stitch in the spike stitch, skip the next single crochet, and then place 2 half double crochet in each double crochet. Placing my last 2 half double crochet for this petal, I'm going to skip the next single crochet, slip stitch to the spike stitch, skip the next single crochet, and then again repeat 2 half double crochet in each double crochet for a total of 10 to create this next petal. Place your 2 last half double crochet and then slip stitch to your first stitch, pull that yarn through, and you can weave that in, and then you have your beautiful 7-sided daisy coaster. I've made my daisy coasters in a couple of different yarns. This is Lion Brand's 24/7 cotton, and this is Lion Brand's cotton hemp. They both work up really, really nicely. The 24/7 cotton, I think you get a little bit more stitch definition. You also have this nice shine to the cotton, super durable. You still have a lot of stretch, and they look really cute in 24/7. There's a little bit more detail and depth to the stitches versus the cotton hemp, which is a little bit more of like, it's got a bit more of like a worn feel to it, I would say. The cotton hemp colors are really bright and really saturated, but they also have a little bit of a muted tone to them. They're not as like jewel toned as say the 24/7 cotton colors are, but I think both of them are really great options for this pattern. Feel free to shop your stash and choose any yarns you want to make these super cute daisy coasters. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video tutorial. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of my free patterns, video tutorials, and just all around yarny goodness.